Released by Capcom in 2012 on the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3, Resident Evil 6 will continue the series into a more dramatically focused direction. Directed by Eiichiro Sasaki, who also directed Resident Evil Outbreak Files 1 and 2, and written by Shotaro Suga, who also wrote the Resident Evil CGI films Degeneration and Damnation, the game takes place between Resident Evil Revelations 2 and 7, and is the second highest selling installment in the series after Resident Evil 5. For story, the game features 4 campaigns interwoven to tell the complete tale. Returning are veterans Chris Redfield, Leon Kennedy, Ada Wong, and even Sherry Birkin from Resident Evil 2, as well as Piers from the Resident Evil manga prequel 2-6. Introduced are newcomers Helena Harper, a Secret Service agent, and Jake Mueller, mercenary. For gameplay, new maneuvers have been added alongside a stamina bar, and each playable character has a unique attribute among them, like alternate firing or extra stamina. Cooperative play returns, as players can now shoot while running or sliding on the ground, dodge in any direction or take cover behind certain objects, and enemies can be stunned with a quick shot or countered with the right timing, and players can defend themselves for a short while if they are knocked down. Action in general is more cinematic, with quick-time events being prompted by both players. In addition, skill points are accrued and spent on unlockable skills the player can equip multiple of in loadouts that they also can switch between during a level. Inventory management has returned to where weapons occupy a separate slot from consumable inventory, though every weapon can be carried all at once, with healing now changed to tablets the player can craft and consume quickly. A second player can join for co-op, choosing to play as one of the 2 partners. The new enemy type is called the Juavo, which is composed of humans, animals, and bioweapons mutated by the new C virus, which are able to regenerate new limbs or abilities based on damage sustained. Otherwise, mercenaries and competitive multiplayer modes return from previous installments, and a new mode called Agent Hunt is introduced, in which the player can invade another online player's game as a monster. Keep in mind, I have no proficiency with Serbian names, so apologies in advance for some of the pronunciations. The story only gets larger from here, so let's cut it down to science with a recapitation. On Christmas Eve 2012, BSAA agent Chris Redfield is in the country of Edonia in Eastern Europe, where he is responding to the use of bioterrorism there. He is assigned to Alpha Team, of whom Piers Nivens, a sniper who's worked with Chris before, is also assigned. Finn, a rookie to BSAA, explains that the new threat they're facing is called the Juavo, and besides being very intelligent and strong, they have the ability to mutate in response to physical trauma, such as growing back stronger limbs if one is lost. Chris reassures a nervous Finn that he and the rest of the team have his back, leaving Finn starstruck at the veteran. At the same time, we meet Jake Mueller, a mercenary among the insurgents in Edonia, and see Sherry Birkin, once the little girl survivor of Raccoon City, and now a federal agent of national security. She sees the insurgents inject themselves with viruses meant to enhance their strength, but it turns them all into BOWs. Jake also injects himself with a dose, but complains he doesn't feel any different. Instead, one of his former comrades turns to attack, though Jake is way too fast and skilled with hand-to-hand combat to be threatened, as he easily defeats the BOW. Sherry now comes in, though a mysterious woman in blue looks on, as Sherry confirms Jake has the antibodies needed to save the world. She introduces herself as a federal agent, saying she needs to get him out of the country, and the BOWs they're facing now have all been exposed to a new virus called the C virus. In fact, Jake's immunity to its effects prove he has the antibodies in his blood they need to make a cure to stop the virus from spreading. After the mercenary, Jake accepts all this and now asks for $50 million for 1 pint of his blood as they now move forward. As they navigate the battlefield, they pause as they see a new giant enemy named Ustanak. With a mechanical claw and terrifying strength, it seems fixated on pursuing Jake, as it also seems impervious to damage. As they work on evading Ustanak, Sherry explains he's been deployed by a bioterrorist organization named Neo Umbrella, who also wants Jake for his blood, dead or alive. Not far away, while Chris and Piers are suppressing the war zone, they are shocked to see a new colossal BOW named Ogreman, and do their best to repel it with conventional and unconventional means. Afterwards, Chris is surprised to run into Sherry Birkin. Chris recognizes her through his sister Claire that saved Sherry, and in turn Sherry's heard a lot about Chris. Piers points out that Jake behind her is a wanted insurgent, and Sherry says that while that's true, Jake is under US protection. Something seems awfully familiar about Jake to Chris, though he can't put his finger on it, but they're interrupted as another Ogreman is dropped on them. Teaming up, they take down this one and the one from before, and Chris arranges air support for Sherry and Jake once the conflict is over. Chris does ask if he's met Jake before, but Jake dismisses the comment as he and Sherry go on their separate ways. Lifting off, Sherry lets her supervisor know Jake is safely in her company and informs Jake his request for $50 million has been approved. Delighted, he jumps ship to join Sherry's side, but quickly Ustanak grabs aboard the transport. Though they try to ward him off as well as the Juavo attack choppers, their plane ends up crashing anyway. Though Jake emerges safely, Sherry's impaled by some shrapnel. Per her request, Jake pulls it out and is amazed to see Sherry quickly regenerate from such a fatal wound. Sherry says it's a long story, and despite her ability, her blood was not what they needed for a cure for the C-virus. She does mention about how her father's research had turned him into a literal monster and killed him, and despite all that, she is glad that she met Leon and Claire, who rescued her, and have been her closest friends ever since. As a snowstorm kicks up, they take refuge in a log cabin, and Sherry chats about how her father researched BOWs when she was exposed to the G-virus. Fortunately, she was treated with the vaccine, allowing the virus to adapt to her body and imbue her with her regenerative abilities ever since. Back with his investigation, Chris enters a mansion strangely littered with dozens of humanoid cocoons. He catches a glimpse of a woman in a blue dress, and further in, he finds a room full of used syringes. The woman in blue walks in, saying the gorillas call it the C-virus, and her name is Ada Wong, a hostage held by them. She also mentions the gorillas said they were working for a group called Neo Umbrella, and while Chris agrees to escort her out, he doesn't fully trust her. As she leads him through a secret exit away, she slips away, and in their confusion, locks Chris and Piers away from the rest of her team. Ada thanks them for the escort and casually tosses a needle grenade into the group that infects the whole team except for Chris and Piers. Chris is horrified at losing his entire team instantly and reaches out for the lost Finn. As the group mutates quickly into fresh monsters, Chris hesitates to fire on the one hatched from Finn, and it in turn grabs him and slams his head hard into the wall and floor. As Piers pulls him out, Chris falls unconscious and loses memories of these events. After the blizzard settles, more Juavo assault Jake and Sherry, stirring an avalanche that has them outriding the destruction on snowmobiles. They duck into a cave for cover but find Ustanak already there, searching for them, playing a game of cat and mouse. Turning the table on their pursuer, they drive an excavating drill into it, confident they've stopped him for now. Emerging from the cave, Sherry sees the rendezvous point for their extraction, but they are sucker punched by a recovered Ustanak. Sherry is knocked out cold by the blow, as an Ada in blue walks in to retrieve them. She teases Jake about how his father is Albert Wesker, a fool who tried to destroy the world, and is also the reason Jake has such special blood. Without a chance to retort, Jake is also knocked out. As 6 months pass, it's June 27, 2013, as we now see a diver in the North Atlantic entering a submarine, and it's Ada Wong. Earlier, National Security Advisor Derek Simmons had contacted her saying he learned of some intel regarding her on this same submarine and invited her to see for herself. With a trademark crossbow, grappling gun, and red outfit, she investigates around to see a mission sent from Simmons in regards to capturing Jake Mueller for the purpose of finding out if his blood has antibodies for the C-virus and to prevent a vaccine from being made. However, this mission was sent 6 months ago, and Ada doesn't recall accepting this mission. As an enemy encounter causes the sub to sink, she escapes the flooding, while learning she allegedly was the one to perform human experimentation in Edonia 5 months ago under orders from Simmons. Simmons now reaches out to her, explaining that tomorrow the US will suffer a bioterrorism attack, and after that, China, as eventually all major cities worldwide will suffer the attack of Neo Umbrella's Ada Wong. Not amused, Ada refuses to be a scapegoat, as she escapes the submarine and begins her own counter-move from the shadows. A few days later, it's June 29th in Eastern Europe, as Piers finds the famous and long-lost Chris Redfield drunk and depressed in a bar. The trauma of losing his team recently had forced him to forget that part of his past, including serving with Piers in a previous bioterrorism incident. Piers forces the old memories back to him and invites him back into the BSAA. Choosing now to stop running away, he accepts, now looking to remember what he forgot from the past. Elsewhere on the same day, President Adam Benford is holding a seminar at Ivy University in Tall Oaks in order to publicly expose the truth of the Raccoon City incident and the US government's involvement with it and Umbrella. However, the school is suddenly the site of a bioterrorism attack and the president is turned into a zombie, to which his friend and DSO agent Leon Kennedy is reluctantly forced to kill him. Turning to him, Secret Service agent Helena Harper apologetically says all this is her fault, somehow knowing Leon's identity and saying she can explain it all if he follows her to Tall Oaks Cathedral. Just then, Hunnigan, Leon's usual operator, contacts Helena and confirms her identity and safety, though she's surprised to hear the president has been infected and killed. She advises them to evacuate, as the virus has already spread miles past the campus and isn't slowing down, but Helena insists they investigate a lead at the cathedral for who was behind the attack. Not happy about the situation, Leon demands Helena tells him everything once they arrive at the church, and agreeing the two agents partner up and move on. Seeing the ruin infected across the campus, they learn a strange gas was the method of delivery for the virus, and with Hunnigan's guidance they escape the overrun campus. They get into a police car, but a straggler zombie causes Leon to wreck, forcing him to detour using an underground route to the cathedral. Finding the subway tunnels only marginally safer, they emerge to find the chaos on the street rising as Leon can't help but be reminded of Raccoon City again. Overhearing news of a disappeared submarine, Leon tries in vain to help survivors along the way. However, new variants of monsters keep emerging and pursuing them, pressuring them to fend off a horde until they escape in a bus. As they catch their breath, Hunnigan updates them that 90% of Tall Oaks has been infected, and a new organization named Neo Umbrella has emerged to claim responsibility for the attacks. She also mentions that Derek Simmons, the National Security Advisor, is breathing down her neck to know why Leon is heading to the church. However, their conversation is cut short as their bus swerves after hitting a zombie and the group is overrun. While escaping, another wayward truck collides into them, sending them flying off a cliff, and while Leon and Helena survive, none of the other survivors do. Looking on, Ada sees Leon is also caught up in this and sends some small sympathy. Cutting through a graveyard to enter the cathedral, Leon and Helena find another group of survivors holed up within. Helena now says that what she needs to show Leon is beneath the altar in a hidden room, though when they reveal it, they're horrified to find a Lepetitsa emerge, spreading gas that is turning people into zombies and was likely the cause of this outbreak. After dealing with it, they go below the altar, where they find an old abandoned lab still riddled with infected experiments, and Helena mentions the name Deborah. As they enter a newer, still operational portion, Helena is surprised to find new equipment and tanks that weren't here a few days ago. While searching, Leon is surprised to find a cassette tape with Ada Wong's name on it. Watching the tape, it mentions a C-Virus experiment and Project Ada, where they see a woman that looks exactly like Ada birthed from a cocoon, with a mysterious man in a ring watching on. Moving on, they see dozens more tanks and find some catacombs below where Helena finds the woman she's looking for, her sister Deborah. They now focus on leaving with Deborah, though Leon doesn't get any answers from Helena yet on why. The catacombs stretch long and deep, and suddenly Deborah falls over, ignites, and forms a cocoon. Quickly hatching, Deborah's emerged form is suddenly shot in the head with a crossbow bolt from the shadows, and Ada now steps out before Leon. Helena raises her gun towards Ada, though Leon lowers it for her, choosing not to believe in Ada and ask for answers, but still getting cryptic replies. As the walkways they're on now collapses, Deborah mutates before them and they give chase as Ada tosses Leon a ring that'll come in handy later. The fight against Deborah continues into the mines and ends with a staggered Deborah falling into an abyss as Helena swears revenge. She explains she and her sister were kidnapped by Simmons and she was forced to cooperate with her sister as leverage. As Ada makes her exit, Leon speaks to Hunnigan and tries to warn her about Simmons, though he interrupts the call. He double-crosses Helena and attempts to pin the president's assassination on both of them, while also denying the counter-accusation. As Ada steps away, she gets another message from Simmons, who's enjoying watching this game, as he invites her now to the research lab down here. Within, she sees the video Leon watched and understands his confusion now. She gets another call from Simmons, but now has it figured out. She realizes this isn't really Simmons who she's talking to right now, but the doppelganger Ada who is behind Neo Umbrella, as the real Simmons would never reveal all his cards like this, especially since it would endanger him and his backing associates called the family. It's clear to her this fake Ada wants to cause as much chaos as possible, but the fake Ada in blue mocks her, saying the world will simply blame the true Ada Wong. As she moves to blow up this lab, she calls the real Simmons and lets him know the fake Ada he made is now planning to destroy the world. Escaping out of the catacombs with the help of Simmons' ring that Ada gave them, they fight with an infected shark in an underwater tunnel and emerge in time to see Tall Oaks neutralized with a missile just like Raccoon City was. They then get a call from Hunnigan who says she is tailing Simmons, who left in a hurry to China. She now sends them new intel of a new outbreak in China with the same C-Virus used in Eastern Europe 6 months ago. Leon now asks Hunnigan to fake their deaths as they now intend to pursue Simmons, arrest him, and clear their names. At this time, we see an active duty Chris return to the front lines after months. Paired with Piers, his new mission is handling Juavos that have now begun appearing in China who have taken UN officials hostage. After seeing them shoot down a helicopter and shaking off the rust of inactivity, Chris remembers more of his past as he deals with the insectile mutations of the C-Virus riddled terrorists. As they escape the subsequent bombing of the building, Chris sees more cocoons that trigger his memory lapses. As we check back on Jake and Sherry the next day, it turns out they've been captured by Neo Umbrella and subject to testing for months. Seizing an opportunity, Jake escapes his captors and disturbs the power of the facility, allowing Sherry to break out as well. Running into each other brings some new modesty between the two, as they share a locker room change and gear up for their new escape. As they catch up, Jake says he heard they were planning on using his antibodies to strengthen the C-Virus rather than cure it, and learn more about the legacy of Albert Wesker, none of which he likes. He's openly concerned that some of his father's lunacy will appear in him through the blood he's inherited. However, Sherry instead dismisses all of that, saying his actions are his own and have nothing to do with his father, carrying a personal tone. Escaping from the mansion-like facility, where it turns out Jake is also proficient in playing the piano, Sherry finds a phone and contacts her supervisor. As it turns out, they're in Lanshiang, China, and so too was her boss. Arranging a rendezvous point, Sherry then steals the research data from the facility before moving out. The Joavo don't let them go easily, pursuing them with even a giant tank, motorcycles, and helicopters as the chase moves into the open streets before being cornered into a courtyard. Meanwhile, as a cleanup team clears out the rest of the cocoons, Chris remembers everything from his past, revealing this to Piers as he now asks what happened to Ada Wong, intent on pursuing her with news that she's in this city now as well. Not aware she's listening in on their comms, the real Ada learns the location of the fake one as well, and moves out among the dangerous streets full of infected. After encountering a perfect camouflaging snake, Chris now runs across Sherry and Jake, who were missing for the last 6 months. Providing covering fire, they help Sherry and Jake escape Neo Umbrella pursuing them and take down the armored helicopter after them. As Chris looks down on Sherry and Jake, Piers urges him to go on after them since Neo Umbrella is after them, but Chris stays coldly focused on killing the BOW snake. Piers can see Chris's mounting frustration, causing him to get angrier the more each of his team is getting picked off by the monster. Trapping and electrocuting the snake, Chris now moves his focus onto getting revenge on Ada. On cue, Ada appears to infect the last surviving man in his group and taunts them as she repels away. Enraged at losing a whole second team, Piers tries to be the voice of reason as Chris continues his pursuit of Ada through a harbor. Real Ada encounters a new BOW with a chainsaw arm, and it pursues her even on a moving bus, though she's too quick as she lures the monster into a moving train. Catching a ride, she has a moment to rest as she continues her own pursuit. At the same time, Sherry and Jake are also moving quickly in the streets, when they now run into the chainsaw BOW just ejected from its fight with Ada. Meanwhile, on the flight over to China, Leon reaffirms Helena that they're partners on this, but the plane rumbles oddly. They check in on the pilots only to find them dead and a Lepetitsa cocoon on board. As they fend it off into the cargo bay, they eject it from the plane to keep its gas from spreading, but it's too late as the rest of the plane is infected with no pilot. With Hunnigan leading him, Leon now attempts to fly the plane as Helena holds off the horde as he flies dangerously low over the city skyline. As Ada chances to glance up with her own business, Leon manages to crash land the plane into a cargo area. Walking away from the wreckage in one piece, he is surprised to be met by Sherry Birkin, whom he hasn't seen since she became an agent. She explains she's on protective detail, and he explains he's pursuing the man behind all this, Simmons. Sherry's now in disbelief, as it turns out she reports to Simmons, and was on her way to meet him now. As Leon demands his location, Sherry hesitates, and Jake steps between them, though Sherry gets him to step down while revealing it was Leon who saved her life in Raccoon City. They're interrupted by Ustanak, and as they fight, Leon sees Jake's intent to also protect Sherry and approves. They drop a flaming radio tower on him to stop him for now, and the two teams are separated again. Sherry chooses to reveal the meeting spot with Simmons and Kucheng, and as Leon cuts through the outdoor market to get there, he contends with the regenerating Rascal Panye, making literal mincemeat of it. At the same time, Chris's chase of Ada leads him to putting down another attack helicopter in her wake. Catching up to her in a warehouse, Chris takes a shot at her and begins his chase again. Unexpectedly, Leon also spots Ada in the distance, sees she's under fire, and gives chase as well. As Chris's team corners Ada first, Leon dives in to defend her, not aware that the opposite team was Chris. As they draw guns, they recognize each other and pause, as Leon says he needs Ada as a key witness since Simmons is behind this all. But Chris insists Ada is the one behind this all, and also working for Neo Umbrella. Leon acknowledges this, and still stands his ground to defend Ada, who takes the window to drop a flashbang and escape. Before chasing, Leon insists they work together for the same thing, and so Chris and the BSAA will pursue Ada, while Leon handles Simmons. Leon then reminds Chris he trusts him to do the right thing, and lets him go. Leon's words hang with him, as he admits to Piers he was right, and he has been hiding from his past, but is now ready to accept it and move on. As their chase moves into the city streets, they learn Ada is moving towards an aircraft carrier in the harbor. Crashing in behind her, they fight through more elite Joavo soldiers and encounter even more heavy resistance. With Sherry, the chainsaw BOW catches up to them, chasing them onto a rickety boat, though with some unexpected help from Ada and Red, the monster is shredded by some nearby rotors. Ada finds it ironic she's helping the children of two of her former associates, and as she sees Chris pursuing the fake Ada, notes what a Raccoon City reunion this all is. As Jake and Sherry wonder who Ada was, Simmons keeps tabs on Sherry, though Leon's warning is starting to weigh heavy on her. Now arriving at the meeting spot, Leon and Helena confront Simmons right as Sherry and Jake enter as well. As Simmons announces he does what's best for the country, Leon clarifies Simmons ordered the assassination of the president. Sherry questions her supervisor, who answers by opening fire on Leon and Helena. Sherry then hands Leon the chip she has on her with data that can help stop the C-virus, as they then all move to counter Simmons. However, as Sherry and Jake turn to flee, they're dogpiled by enemies and captured again. Though, as Simmons turns, an unsuspecting Joavo sent by Ada shoots him with a unique C-virus, and he realizes the betrayal by her. Chris and Piers actually hear the whole broadcast as Ada mentions something called the family, and how everything else will soon change too. Simmons now stumbles onto a speeding train to get away, though Leon and Helena quickly catch up and leap aboard. Confronting him, Simmons explains that had the president come clean about Raccoon City like he intended, the USA would have lost its global authority, and so he had to be killed. As leader of an ancient influence called the family, it was his responsibility to steer the country and maintain control. After this, he stumbles and begins to mutate under the virus, turning rapidly into a four-legged beast and again into a nightmarish centaur. As the two agents finish off the corrupt national security advisor, a helicopter comes in for Simmons, appraises the situation, and then leaves Simmons to his fate, shocking him that the family would abandon him of all people. As he slips off the train, it runs over him, derailing and careening into the water as Leon and Helena leap for safety. Elsewhere, Ada nabs a jet ski and hurries over to the same carrier fake Ada is on, though she's soon spotted by Chris. Chris doesn't hesitate in his chase, though Ada always seems one step ahead of him. Ada then finds the answers to the mystery so far. In the past, Simmons was obsessed with Ada, but frustrated she never reciprocated his feelings. Working under Simmons was a bright researcher named Carla, who eventually created the C-virus and also loved Simmons, who did not feel the same in return in this love triangle. As it turns out, Carla was a close genetic host to Ada, so Simmons used bioengineering and Carla's C-virus to turn her into a perfect clone of Ada that would obey him. At first it worked, but then Carla's mind returned to her new body, and she now swore revenge on Simmons and everything he worked to build by using her own creations, while also being scornful of the true Ada Simmons always had his eye on. Outside, Chris catches up to Ada in blue as she continues her taunting of Chris, who responds by shooting the injection gun out of her hands. He admits he was blinded by rage ever since Edonia, but now that's behind him. Ada doesn't care, saying that soon every city in the world will be hit by the C-virus from an aircraft carrier preparing for launch, though to her surprise, a helicopter flies up and a gunman from the family snipes her, sending her over as Chris watches Ada die. Piers then picks up what Ada dropped, seeing a vial that seems to be a different strain of the virus, though two seem to be missing. The BSAA confirms the carrier Ada was talking about, so Chris and Piers hurry to secure a fighter jet. Catching up to the carrier and moving to take out its defenses, they hurry to take out the missiles but are a second too late as one ends up firing anyway, heading straight for the city. Ada sees her imposter fall, and after Chris and Piers leave, she approaches the body of Carla, noting her hatred for Simmons is what drove her to wanting to destroy the world they created. Suddenly, Carla lurches up, still alive, and spitting back the sympathy Ada was giving her. She melts into an ooze and begins to permeate throughout the ship, still claiming to be the true Ada Wong. As she escapes her imposter, Ada grabs a helicopter and lifts off, leaving Carla to the BSAA and now intent on pursuing Simmons herself. As Leon sees the BSAA evacuating people out of the city, Hunnigan comes in that Sherry and Jake have been abducted and are in an undersea oil field, and Helena realizes Jake was the key to stopping the C-virus thanks to the data Sherry had. Helena sees something flying in the sky, and Chris now comes in on the communication, urging them to get out ASAP. As it turns out, the missile was full of C-virus and strikes Tachi City, blanketing the area in viral gas, infecting everyone. As Chris and Piers are the closest to them, Leon asks them to rescue Sherry and Jake, while also revealing Jake is Albert Wesker's son, and his blood has antibodies for the C-virus. Unfortunately, Chris reciprocates the news by stating Ada is dead. Somberly acknowledging the news, Leon now turns his attention to helping the BSAA evacuate survivors of the new outbreak. Unfortunately, efforts seem futile the further they go into the city, though as things seem grim amidst the destruction, Ada reveals herself alive and in a helicopter to help clear a way forward for Leon. Soon fleeing an exploding jet, they dash to a rescue chopper, but as it turns out the pilot is killed and so Leon struggles to guide the careening chopper as it slams into a tower, forcing them to bail out in the nick of time. Against all odds, also inside the same tower they are, is Simmons, still alive, and Ada and her helicopter soon arrive to provide backup. Morphing now into a tyrant-like T-Rex, they hold their ground with the help of Ada and the BSAA to take down the berserk Simmons. Afterwards, Ada moves on up, providing an escape route for Leon and leaves him with a gift. She soon sees Simmons is still alive and goes up to finish him off, even though he seems convinced that she's the clone that he made. Now moving to the roof, Helena notes Leon cares about Ada, but before he can reply with his feelings, their elevator is cut down, and they're forced to scale upwards as they look on and see Simmons fighting Ada. They provide cover for each other, but when Ada is knocked out, Leon dives in to save her. Together, they work to put down Simmons, who goes tumbling over the edge into the fire. As they part ways again, Leon is left with few answers on Ada, but she sends him a message assuring him she'll see him later and left them a gift on the roof. Arriving, they see Ada left them a helicopter, though Simmons arrives again, this time mutating into a massive winged insect. With the aid of the local lightning storm and the rocket launcher gifted by Ada, they hit Simmons so hard he reverts back to his original form before being impaled on a spire, dying as his blood is splayed out into an iconic logo. Checking in, they also see Ada left them evidence of Simmons' guilt, and as they escape, Hunnigan checks in to inform them that they have a means to beat the virus now. At the same time, Ada finds Carla's personal lab and destroys all evidence of her work and her own identity theft, gaining some final closure, before moving on to the next mission in her life. Meanwhile, Chris and Piers arrive in the oil rig where Sherry and Jake are and descend down while commenting how ironic that Albert Wesker's son is the key to saving the world, and Chris, who killed Wesker, is here to save Jake. He confesses that after all this, he plans to retire and will be glad if Piers would take his place. Quickly finding a security station, they locate Sherry and Jake and free them, though this trips an alarm. Fighting their way to reunite with Sherry and Jake, Chris takes this time to tell Jake he not only knew his father Albert Wesker, but was the one to kill him as well. Jake pulls a gun in quick response, and Chris doesn't run from giving Jake a choice to kill him as well, though urges him to survive and stop that virus regardless. Asking Chris if killing Wesker was orders or personal, Chris replies that it was both, and in a fit of rage, Jake pulls the trigger, though deliberately aims away, admitting that there are bigger things at stake now, showing some maturity. Their standoff is cut short as the room begins to rumble and they see a colossal cocoon above. Seeing the project name House and the planned Doomsday to be unleashed by Neo Umbrella, they hurry to get out and report these findings, but the giant cocoon hatches, revealing the ultimate BOW of the C virus. Chris urges Sherry and Jake to move on ahead, as he and Piers stay behind to handle House, and the two teams split up once more. Chris hurries to outrun House, though when facing the massive monster, Piers is knocked aside and some debris is flung at him that rips his arm off. Seeing an opportunity with the enhanced C virus he took from Ada earlier, he crawls over to the virus, injects himself with it, and in response, the virus regenerates his arm into an electric cannon. Trapped in a pressure room with House, Piers attempts to stay in control as the virus consumes him, as he uses his new abilities to beat the regenerating House, and Chris uses his strength to cut the heart right out of the beast. Meanwhile, above a giant smelting room, Ustanak is there one more time to rein in Sherry and Jake, though with their combined teamwork, they destroy the monster's arm and pressure the beast enough to finally knock it out and over into the fiery pits below. Now moving to take the service elevator out of the facility, they find it moves at an incredible speed, but worse yet, Ustanak lives yet again, on fire, and rapidly catching up with a transport of his own. With a tunnel flooding with fire behind them, they see the heart of Ustanak has finally been exposed, and seeing a magnum nearby, Sherry grabs it, Jake holds her to steady her aim, and together they finally fire through the monster, ending the chase once and for all. As the coast is clear, Jake gives Sherry a heartfelt thank you as the two reach a mutual understanding. As Chris and Piers now hurry to escape the crumbling facility, Piers expends his energy clearing the way forward for them. Seeing some escape pods, Chris sees new hope, but Piers reflects on his current state and instead shoves in Chris to get away while he stays behind. Having to face the loss of his latest partner, Chris is helpless as he sees House now alive again and quickly swimming towards his pod and snatching him. Just then, against all odds, a surge of electricity from the facility aims true and strikes House, ripping apart the monster definitively as the facility explodes as well, ending the global threat. As the sun rises on a new day, Chris is alone again, but the memento Piers left behind with him reminds him to stay optimistic about the future going forward. Later, we see Chris still has not retired from the BSAA, as the war on bioterrorism continues. Elsewhere, Sherry is then seen writing up her mission report, wherein she mentions how with Jake's blood and the research from Neo Umbrella, a cure for the C virus was underway and the BSAA would classify his relationship to Albert Wesker as top secret. She gets a message from him, saying he would lower his asking price to just $50, and smiles as they go their separate ways. As things have calmed down, Helena visits the grave for her sister, alongside Leon and Hunnigan, and they tell her that after review, she was not being held liable for Simmons' crime. Returning to duty, Helena tosses Leon the compact Ada left them in the helicopter, telling him to return it to her the next time he sees her. To this, Leon smirks, and sighs again, as his luck with women doesn't change. Finally, we see Jake abroad in the world, choosing to protect the small and weak while fighting bioterrorism his own way. Resident Evil 6 has enjoyed the success of selling over 8.2 million copies worldwide.